Jim, welcome back. Walking back into the stadium as manager again, what emotions did you feel the moment you arrived?
Crazy. It's everyone knows the feelings I have for the football club and to drive up, and it's been a whirlwind 48 hours. But yeah, emotional. The club means a lot to me, so it was nice to walk through the door. And as I say, there's been a few conversations since Friday night. It's moved quite quickly, and I find myself here now. So yeah, pleased to be back.
And you've had a long history with this football club. When the opportunity came up to return, was it an easy decision for you, or one you had to really think about?
As I say, it's been a mad 48 hours. If I just go back, I've not done nothing for 10, 11 months. I've had offers in the game, management offers, etc. A few other little bits and pieces, but it just hasn't felt right. When you get to, I'm 50 in June, and I think life's important. I've had a little scare since I've left. A lot's happened to me personally, since I've left the football club. And, I've had that time to reflect and reset your life, so to speak, and plan for the rest of your time. Take into consideration what you've got, your pensions, your properties, your own, and all that. And I've come up with a plan which I'm quite happy with. And as I say, there's been one or two bits and pieces that have come up. It hasn't felt right, but I got on the road for the first time on Thursday. And my plan was to do a little bit. I had something on Friday, but Saturday, Sunday, ease into it, and then really start the following week proper. But I seen the news come out. Obviously, I don't live in the area, but I keep tabs on what's happening, because it's always been an Evertonian, but it's always been the first result I look for is Morecambe. And I've seen the unfortunate news of Ash leaving, and I'm gutted for him that hasn't worked out, and I'm sure the club will wish them all the best, and I echo that as well. I hope he goes on and gets back in the game, but we're in a sticky position. You get the phone call, about Friday evening, can we have a meeting? I'll go and meet Rupinder on Friday night with Pat as well, and then meet the owners on another journey on Saturday to meet the owners. And I'm pleased to be back. I probably wouldn't have gone back to any club back into the game at this present moment in time. It's not to say I'd never do it in the future. Who knows what's around the corner? I feel that for 3 months as caretaker, what I can give, the feeling I have for this football club, the respect, 17 and a half years of my life here. I've got a great relationship with the people, the fans, the local area, the community. Put my heart and soul into the place when I was here, and it's close to my heart. So I offer quite a lot in that regards. And yeah, I don't think at this present moment I'm the medium or long-term future as manager of this football club. But I do think I've got a lot to offer for the next 3 months and try and get us out of this sticky situation. And, I've steered this football club through many, with my staff, Kenny McKenna and the staff and all the players, with and the upstairs staff, the non-footballing staff, directors, etc. We've gone through some real tough times, certainly when I was a manager, and we come through it against all odds, and then we've left the club, and, it's had its ups and downs, but, it's 3 months. I've done it for 8 years as a manager. It's 3 months, and hopefully I can do it again. So when they asked me to come back and be caretaker, getting back to your original question, I was excited, I'll be honest. When I've had a couple of phone calls about other roles, I haven't really felt it. As soon as they asked me to come back and help them, I was more than happy to come back. And as I say, all I'm interested in is 3 months, doing what I can, putting all the hard work in, generating a bit of atmosphere, getting the lads doing the business on the pitch. They're the most important people at the football club. They're the ones got to go out and perform and win games and get us out of this position. And then, as I said to the owner and the board, I'm more than happy, because of my feelings with the football club, to be involved in some capacity moving forward, to help this football club get back to where we all want it to be.
And what conversations did you have with the CEO and Pat that convinced you this was the right project at this time?
That was it, just honest and open. I think it was more personality, seeing what my thoughts were, seeing what theirs were. As I say, it totally come out the blue. It was, I've not been chasing as a job in football. I've enjoyed my time off, and I've just had Christmas. I've been in the game 33 years. I've just had the first Christmas with no football. you know, which is a bit weird. But I've found other things on a Saturday which, you know, I've enjoyed. I've seen the other side of life. You know, I'll go to Everton, a new ground, and I go and watch them regularly with friends. I'm meant to be going to Fulham away next week on the train to watch Everton Fulham, but you know, that's life. It's weird. You know, they've given me this shout. I've gone and met Rupinder and Pat. I've spoke about the club. You know, I've spoken about my thoughts from the outside looking in. You know, they're a new ownership group, and my hat goes off to them because of what happened previously. You know, I come to the Altrincham home game, and I was actually here the day before, and you know, you could see the relief that these people come along and save the football club. So, you know, I'm very, very pleased that they've come and done that. So, honest, open conversations on both occasions, on the Friday night and the Saturday night. And yeah, I don't need much convincing to come back here and have one last pop at it, to be honest.
Football has evolved a lot since you was last here at the club. Have you adapted or added anything new to your managerial approach since your last time here?
I have. I've learned a lot. You know, at different clubs, different situations, working with different people. You know, this was my first managerial job. Obviously, I ended up becoming the longest serving manager in the top 4 divisions when I was here. But, you know, I work with Kenny closely. He's one of my best mates. And again, it was fantastic for the football club. But when you go away and you sample different ideas and, you know, different coaches, different people that you're with, you know, that's part and parcel of a journey for any coach or manager. You know, is taking bits that you like off certain people and maybe sidestepping a couple of others. So you evolve, you know, as a person as well. You know, it wasn't so long since when I left, you know, COVID it kicked in. I had my own health scare. So, you know, there's a lot of things that have happened in that 5, 6 years, whatever it is, since I left the club. So you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about your capabilities and your weaknesses and your strengths. And I do think obviously time and those experiences make you a better person and a better, you know, at your job or at your profession.
And Morecambe fans will remember your previous time here fondly. What would you like to say to them directly?
It's nice to be back. I've not been to many games. I've watched a few games, obviously, with being off. You know, if I'm not at the Everton match and I'm looking to watch someone on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday night and on the iPlayer, I've been watching. So I've watched a few games as a fan from afar. And I can see that, you know, there's been a bit of negativity, obviously, what's gone on before. Thankfully, the club, you know, and thankfully to the owners to come along, we've still got a football club here. And the fans can play a massive part. I was at that Altrincham game, and it was like a celebration, you know, everyone coming together. And the position that we find ourselves in now, I think it's even more important that they come together even more at home, away matches, around the town, generating interest. You know, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is the football club. And it's everyone wants what's right for it. Everyone wants what's best. And the fans have got a massive part to play in that. It's their football club at the end of the day. You know, the owners won't always own it. I won't always be here. People come and go. But the people of Morecambe will never walk away from their football club. So it's massive that they put their disappointments, any negativity, you know, we've all seen it at any level from the Premier League down. You know, I just want them to really bottle all that and put it away for another day and just bring the energy, bring the enthusiasm, bring the back and the support, get behind the players, get behind everyone at the football club. You know, it's very, very new. People are learning on the job of football at the football club. People are going to make mistakes. You know, stuff's happened. We find ourselves in a difficult position. We've got 18 cup finals left in 3 months, and the crowd have got a massive, massive part to play. So, as I say, park everything negative and just bring all the energy and the enthusiasm and the positivity moving forward for every game that we go into.
And realistically now, what are the immediate priorities between now and the end of the season?
Stay up. I've done the Radio Lancashire on the first day, the first game. You know, and I said to Derek Quinn, with what had gone on with regards to the pre-season, 5 players on contract, all the negativity, you know, all good football clubs are based on a steady structure, you know, and ownership, etc. And as I say, I've seen my fair share of it since I've been here. and moving grounds, ownership problems. I could write a book on the football club. A lot of things that to keep in house, a lot of things people knew, but we're in a position at the minute that hopefully this is rock bottom. We're second from bottom of the division. And, sometimes I've had one of my previous clubs in Rochdale. I felt at that time I went in, they were at rock bottom. And the only way was up. It was probably a bad time for me to go in because of all the negativity that was going on. Thankfully, they've got new investment, the structure's right, and they've gone from strength to strength and they're doing well. And I see Morecambe now as that. It's not so long ago it was in League One and playing in FA Cup games with Premier League teams, and now suddenly we're second bottom of the National League, and in a really difficult position. But as I say, what's gone's gone. The most important thing, the short term, the very short term, is preparing right for Tuesday night at Altrincham away. And then come Saturday is a home match. First time back at home, get everyone here, get the place bouncing and get behind the players to go and get 3 points, hopefully. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to win games quickly, get ourselves up that table, get ourselves over that little line in the league table, and enjoy the running, embrace the challenges that lie ahead, stick together. There will be ups and downs. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, but ultimately that's the aim: is to keep this club in football in the football league. I was that used to saying that over the years, in the National League.
And do you enjoy that challenge of coming into situations like this where you need to lift the group and turn momentum?
Yeah, for some reason, that's all I've ever done. So people might say, "Oh, you only kept us in the division." Listen, I'm telling you now, not myself and Kenny and the staff and any player that represented us. The Diego Lemos, the Joseph Carter, all the stuff that used to go on, the bond group coming in, the late payments of wages, the embargoes, the non-payments of wages. I sometimes think it was a little bit, it was underestimated what we achieved, because people don't know what go on. I could tell you so many stories where we've got nowhere to train, with pre-match meals are only half-hearted because of the money, so many things. But what we did, we kept them in the division every year. Obviously, new investment come in. I think it was Charlie Appleyard and James Wakefield who come in, and suddenly, if I use an example, me and Les used to battle for about 7 years to get him a laundry. And as soon as I left, within 2 weeks, there was a laundry. So, I was looking to strengthen the team, which we did the year before, the likes of Richie Bennett and Aaron Collins, Pierre Mingoya, off the back of Jason Oswell moving. And based on that last third of the season, we were fourth in the division. The season after, we tried to do it. There's no money available. I didn't see eye to eye with the old owners. I think I was proven right with my full process with them. That's why I left the club. But then 6 players come in. So they went from strength to strength after I left, and fair play, Derek Ham's done a great job and got them up into the next division. So, but you move on, you go, because you've done it here. Father in a sticky position. I went in there and I fully 100% believe, the last 3 games that we had, we took 7 points, kept 2 clean sheets, momentum, players coming back from injury, etc., etc. And then COVID kicked in, which ultimately cost us on a points per game. And unfortunately, the club got relegated. When at Rochdale, as I say, Rochdale was a very, very difficult one. They were really rock bottom as a club. Some good people, and as I say, I'm pleased that they're back to where, they're on the up. And then Southport, my last job, went in there, 1 point from 14 games, 8 from the season before, and 1 point from the 6 games that season. I think we're 7 points away from getting out the bottom 4. I think 5 games later, we were out the bottom 4 and looking upwards rather than downwards, a little bit up and down, but ultimately we got the job done and stayed in that division. So that's been my remit, so to speak, in every job that I've had. So, it brings its stresses and all that, but I'm a totally different person now. As I say, that when I left, it was my first job. I took everything to heart. I didn't know how to manage myself, the stress levels, etc., etc. A lot more. I look at life totally different now. I've learned a lot, as I say, and all I'm interested in is putting my heart and soul into this football club. Because as I say, I've been good to this football club. This club's probably been better to me than I've to them, and I'd love to give something back. And by giving something back is 18 cup finals that we've all got to embrace. We've all got to get behind the team, win as many games as we can, and hopefully get to that magic number, whatever it may be. which is outside that bottom four in the National League.
And finally, when the fans watch your Morecambe side over the coming weeks, what do you want them to see?
Hard work, competitiveness, togetherness, aggression in the right way, desire. You know, represent the badge on the front of the shirt in the manner that which I did. You know, I would have done anything to get 3 points on a Saturday, because I was always taught growing up, working class. If someone's willing to put money in your bank, the least you can do, you know, food on your kid's table, the least you can do is to empty the tank on match day and show a real desire to win games of football. And that's what I base my whole playing career on. Some people, you know, some people like me, some people didn't. That's life. Some people will be pleased I'm coming back, some people won't. It is what it is. But ultimately, I've got the best interest of the club at heart. I love the club, and I want them, fans and the community, to get right behind the club and the players on any match day, any 11 players on the pitch at any one time, and those players to represent this town and respect and appreciate the position that we find ourselves in. It is what it is. You can't do nothing about it. The league table doesn't lie. But we've got 18 cup finals to do something about it. And together, you know, togetherness is massive. Desire and work rate and, you know, team spirit, etc., is massive. And momentum, build some momentum. You've seen it up and down the country. It's happening, you know, the last couple of weeks, and like some Man United, Celtic, you know, where people are going in, taking the caretaker role, getting a few positive results. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. And I hope, well, I'm not hoping, I'm going to demand that those players, any player that are on the pitch at any one time, represents this football club, this town, in the right manner. A town and a club that's had a lot of negativity thrown at it over the last couple of years. And, you know, we've got to enjoy it now. We've got to embrace it. We've got to enjoy the running, get as many points on the board as we can. And come that last game of the season, we can all shake each other's hand, be pleased with what we've achieved, and move on into a brighter future under the new ownership.